going on around the state. So just to let you know what's going on, you know, of course, here we have Marin County. In Los Angeles, there's rallies today, about the same time zone, Hermosa Beach, Pacific Palisades, San Fernando Valley, and 2 in Torrance. And you probably know LA City Council has come out in opposition to Senate Bill 79. It's a really big deal. Yes, yes. So in addition to that, San Diego has rallies and San Francisco. So you're a part of many, many people coming together to say Senate Bill 79 is a big deal. Council representation is Eileen Burke. She's on the San Anselmo City Council. She's also a trial lawyer. And another little tidbit that I love about finding out about you is that you rode your bicycle from San Francisco to Los Angeles in an AIDS ride, I don't know, some time ago. But please welcome a fighter and endurance woman, Eileen Burke.
Thank you. So I also grew up in San Anselmo, so I have just a huge history in Marin County. And the basic question I'd ask you is, which of you wants to burn in your car or in your house because you couldn't get out when you needed to evacuate? And that's really my main focus related to the housing bills they're pushing on us, is they're not protecting us. And I think Senate Bill 79 just ignores everything we know about fire and evacuation. And those are just some facts. This isn't an emotional pull to you, it's reciting facts. We know temperatures are rising. We know fire danger is increasing and that the fire season is now year-round. And what local fire agencies are telling us is it's not will there be a major fire, it's when. And we can look at the devastation all across the state: Los Angeles, Coffey Park, Paradise, Santa Rosa. So we know it's coming, and it's not just fire professionals that know it's coming. Insurance companies know it's coming, and they're canceling our policies. So those facts are out there, and it's the responsibility of politicians to protect people and to plan. And with that knowledge, planning means planning for evacuation. But Senate Bill 79 doesn't protect us. It'd cram more people into suburbs and rural areas and make it more likely that we won't get out and we will burn and die. And I don't want to die in a fire, and I don't want my neighbors to die in a fire. So I think there's things we need to tell politicians in Sacramento, and not even just our local ones, others that are considering passing this, that protecting us means you can't keep building in areas with few roads in and out, like Ross Valley, where San Anselmo is situated. Protection means you can't keep building in areas where there are hills and narrow valleys. That's Mill Valley, San Anselmo, Larkspur, Fairfax, all of the Ross Valley. 65,000 cars go through the hub in San Anselmo a day. Our roads are already past carrying capacity. We cannot add more people and expect that we are going to evacuate successfully. And if we don't evacuate successfully, we die. It's that simple. Protection also means that you can't keep building along transit routes that are evacuation routes. That, again, makes it more difficult for us to get out. And protection ultimately means you can't take local zoning and safety decisions away from the people who are the ones who will die, us. So I think it's time that we told politicians we don't want to burn, and we mean it. So start listening, start protecting us, and stop Senate Bill 79.
Work. And I really fight for what is right, not necessarily whatever is popular. And I have to tell you right out of the box, this SB79 is wrong. It's wrong for cities, it's wrong for counties, and it is wrong for the great state of California. And it should be shelved and probably be buried. I served as president of the League of California Cities, and I traveled throughout the state, and I listened to all the city councils, and we went to some school districts too as well, because we work as partners at all levels of government, right? And so there's no question that we need to make sure that we get every city to vote no on this. Novato has, a lot of cities in Marin have, and I really welcome LA because that's really going to be very persuasive. You know, SB 79 is about market rate housing, which attracts a demographic that does not use public transit. SB 79 totally disregards the work that we have done here in Marin and with our community members to identify housing that really supports the people that live here. And one of the things that we are working very hard on is getting more affordable housing, but SB 79 has nothing to do with affordable housing. SB 79 creates more conflict in neighborhoods since developers will be allowed to build up to 7 stories with a density of 120 homes per acre without regard for the community needs, without environmental review, and more importantly, even without public input, which to me is the biggest thing ever. We have always had public input. We've always encouraged it, but now state law, and these elected officials came from local government. They're prohibiting, they're not allowing for public input, which I think is a violation that every person should stand up and actually make sure that they realize that this is not something that we want. You know, the state has forced so many of these laws on cities and counties. And, you know, there hasn't even been enough time for developers to build. But they're buying up the property to ensure that they can. They're going to do it on their time and their rules, not ours. In fact, one of the big developers that bought a piece of property on Grant Avenue has now opened it up, back up again. You know, that's the problem with these laws, is that the state keeps passing them without even having an opportunity for us to implement what's already been done. SB 79 should be thrown out. It is not about affordable housing. It is wrong. It's wrong for Novato. It's wrong for Marin. And I'd have to tell you, it is wrong for the state of California. Let's dump SB 79. And thank you all for...
The reality is, if you're my daughter and she lives in the Hamilton section of Novato and wants to get to downtown Mill Valley, there's practically one way to do it: drive. I hate to say it, I've always been a transit advocate. I commuted to San Francisco to my office for decades. The commute works to San Francisco, but if you live and work in the North Bay, nobody's going to pick a house because it's near a bus stop. And nobody's going to pick a house to live in Tiburon simply because the transit's there. There's lots of reasons to live in Tiburon, but most people are not going to go to San Francisco, and that's the only place the transit's going to take you. It's a myth that people who live in right near a transit, right here, for instance, are all going to go to San Francisco. They're not. And so that myth has to be punctured and exposed. One of the things that they should do in developments, in my opinion, is track what happens to the people that live in those. There's some in Novato like that. Track them. Where do they move? Where do they live? What's their mobility? They don't do it because they don't want to know the results. The results are going to show they drive. So that's why I would urge you to write Senator McGuire and Damon Conley, who was yes to vote on this issue, and tell Damon to vote no, and tell Senator Conley, tell me how this is going to...
So why are you here? You're here because our community is being threatened by our own government. Imagine that. They're supposed to represent us, and we're threatened by them. Why am I here? I've spent my entire career, 45 years with my office in Sausalito, dedicating my time to creating beauty, designing buildings and sites that honor the neighborhood, honor the needs of the neighbors, are site-specific, that preserve historic value. All of that's being threatened here. That's why I'm here. I'll tell you, I'm also here because I firmly believe it's our government that should serve us and protect the values we hold dear. It's our government. We need to make that clear, okay? I read Senate Bill 79, okay? We're talking 5 stories with a density bonus 7, but get this, it's even worse. If you have a property adjacent to a transit hub, you could go 9 stories. Sausalito, I want to show you what that looks like. They didn't know its implications. This is the implication, a 9-story tower in downtown Sausalito. Well, the community organized. They formed a group called Save Sausalito, or Save Our Sausalito, SOS. They had a petition they passed around. There's only 7,000 people in Sausalito. 2,500 signed this petition. So the developer said, well, okay, instead of a 9-story tower, this is what it was going to look like in downtown Sausalito. Imagine this. And this is only on one parcel. That's what it would look like. You can come up and see it later. Sorry, it's so small.
As Pat pointed out, long-term mayor, city activist in Fairfax. Take it away.
Just a couple of quick words. You know, you wonder how all this legislation comes about. Senator Maguire, our state senator, cut a deal with Scott Wiener to become President Pro Tem of the Senate. Senator Maguire supports almost every bill that State Senator Scott Wiener puts in a hopper. And I guess that's what they call payback in order to get that job as President Pro Tem of the Senate. We're really up against it. And what's interesting is our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, is supporting all of this housing legislation and threatening cities that don't have their housing elements in order. What's interesting, years ago in Fairfax, you know, Fairfax actually met ABAG's housing goals back in the 80s. We were the only city in Marin to meet the ABAG affordable housing goals, and we ended up in some legal battles. Some of the ordinances that I wrote, we were challenged in court, and they went all the way up to the Supreme Court 4 times, and then Attorney General's office supported Fairfax. They actually carried the defense of the town of Fairfax, and we overcome. We actually overcame some of these issues with the help of the state Attorney General's office. So now all of a sudden it's flipped on us. The Attorney General's office with Bonta, they're working against all the cities. He's working against all the cities. Fairfax has always been an affordable town. We had a lot of apartment buildings, and back in the 80s, I wrote an ordinance that prohibited the conversion of affordable apartment units to for sale condos. You know, condominiumizing apartment buildings was a big thing back then. And we took that one all the way to the California Supreme Court, and we prevailed. And this court said Fairfax had a right to protect its existing affordable housing by the means that the town council chose. So you know, it's we can't give up. We can't give up legally, and we've got our hands full. But hopefully, Assemblymember Connolly is going to come to our side here when it gets to the assembly. But anyway, just keep it up. Don't give up. Never give up. Thank you.
That was great. Such good words. Don't give up. Never get up. Write your letters today. Don't forget to take Dick Spotswood's recommendation to write or email today. So, okay, now you're gonna hear again from Carolyn Leonard. Carolyn was a San Rafael Fire Commissioner. She has started and participated in so many leadership kinds of groups and community activities. Carolyn is going to talk to us about also the fire danger. So we're getting a theme.
Killed the golden goose to get all the golden eggs at once. However, to their disappointment, they discovered that the inside of the golden goose was like any other goose, and it was not made up of gold. So greed and poor planning, they call it planning, it's not, have led to bankruptcies of some of these projects, bad debt, loss, damage, and ultimately causing the damage of our source of wealth in this county, which is our careful stewardship of its beauty, its power, and its resources. So Marin burns, Marin floods. We have to take that into account. And as a former fire commissioner, I know that we must design with nature and not against it, or we risk creating more liabilities, more loss, and more waste. We must defend our residents and each other, our homes, the infrastructure we've built and paid for, and protect nature from these destructive fires and floods. People don't realize how few firefighters are at your local house or how many in your city. And excuse me, but they're not enough and they're overwhelmed. Marin now lacks sufficient water, transportation, and wastewater resources. Marin is a peninsula. Moreover, it's a peninsula with peninsulas. Have you noticed? There is no evacuation. But do recall that zoning, which is involved in Senate Bill 79, is a police power of state. That's a fact in real estate. So we need to get ahead of this and stay ahead of it and stay ahead of it all our lives. The proposed high-rise and mid-rise multifamily projects will require the use of hook and ladder fire engines. Anybody know how much that costs? They only go up about 6 stories, and the last one we got is a custom fire engine. They all have to be customized. $2 million. So these proposals don't come with fire engines. We want to be sure those that voted yes for it put their beloved loved ones on the very top floors, because that's walking the talk. So can your town afford $2 million for one engine? Well, what about the personnel and the training to use it? Where are you going to store it? None of these things are part of the solution here. How are evacuations going to be possible on our tiny, crooked, 2-lane roads like to Tiburon? Will the developer that received all these concessions and these incentives to overbuild per the SB79 project, are they going to provide the hook and ladder? Are they going to provide the new fire engines? Where are the community benefits in all of this? What are the community benefits in all of this? There aren't any, but you will end up paying for it.
This game, how many of you remember playing Monopoly? Raise your hand, nod your head. Okay. I figured almost everybody here would remember Monopoly. And I want to propose that if you played Monopoly, you know most everything you need to know in its simplicity about what's going on with Senate Bill 79 and the other rash of bills we've had over the years. So you know that the process of Monopoly, it's called what the real estate game came out in 1930, is the game of, first of all, buying property, then buying the adjacent property, then building one house and then 2 houses and then 3 and 4 houses, then wiping those off the board to be able to build hotels. And what do you think happens as that density increases, as you acquire more land and the density increases? The Scott Wieners and Buffy Wicks and other legislators would like us to believe that greater density and higher buildings would reduce rent. But if you all played Monopoly, you know that every time there's an added property or an added house or houses displaced with hotels, the rents go up for landing on that property. And it is the same thing as real estate happens today. And the issue is that our ownership of the land is being ripped out of the hands of a lower middle class body of people, us probably standing here in this courtyard, and is moving into the hands of the billionaires, as we saw in our national bill to benefit billionaires. That California and the country does not have a supply issue. We have the supply of housing that is needed and could supply housing for everybody. And Dick covered this in his column a week or so ago. We have not only our local researcher, the Canadian Patrick Condon, who is an architect, used to be favoring high development in Vancouver, saying this would be the way to make housing affordable, has since reversed his claim, and Vancouver is now the most expensive city in Canada. And we are moving in that same direction. These bills follow the principle, the 79 follows the principle of monopoly and will further consolidate land into the hands of fewer and fewer people.
that expanded its scope, which was SB35, suddenly turning into SB423 and extending to the coast and knocking out the Coastal Commission's input and then making the affordability quotient lower. And that happened about 2 years ago. Last year, Scott Wiener wanted SB610, which would have eliminated the fire hazard maps. He worked so hard to get rid of those because it said in his fact sheet, cities use those to cheat on their fair share housing. So when you look around California and you see where all of this housing is being proposed, it's like a 15% increase everywhere. It makes absolutely no sense. I really encourage you to sign up. I have a QR code out. If you haven't been on the website, I have a lot of information. I'm transitioning to another organization called Wake Up California. To do this rally, I worked with 5 other groups that are all participating today. And your participation and your bringing this information out into the world with you is what's going to make a difference. And I really...
But, no, I make it a rule to not attack anybody personally, but I want to talk facts. Money talks in Sacramento. The campaign donation system in California and in much of America is corrupt. People who want to run for additional office have to raise ridiculous amounts of money to do so. Scott Wiener, like many of his colleagues on both parties, wants to run for Congress. In this case, his eye is on Nancy Pelosi's seat when Nancy retires, which will be fairly soon based on age. The real estate and the development industry, and most importantly, the building trade unions, are very generous campaign contributors. And Wiener knows he won't be unopposed in San Francisco. Everyone and their brother wants to succeed Nancy Pelosi. So follow the money. Follow the money with the YIMBYs. Follow the money with, take a look at where their money's coming from. It's coming from the technology and the development industry.
And vacant for 5 years if Senate Bill 79 passes. This is really scary. Oh, and the last thing, ministerial approval. There will be no public notice of these developments, no public hearings, no story polls, no public input. It's ministerially approved automatically if all the criteria is met. No historic preservation, no CEQA. It goes on and on. It's really scary.
You know, if the cities that we're in wanted to get together and sue the state, we could. But it would take a lot for us to do that because we would have to pay for it. And I know Novato, we're a poor property tax city, and so we're very limited. And so there's a lot of money involved.
We
So
are all from small towns, and we don't have a legal budget like that. But the more housing bills we see, the more likely we're going to see that pushback at the ballot box, legally, direct action. You know, people chaining themselves literally to bulldozers. So I think we're going to see that, you know, in the future.
And I do need to mention, though, that the League of California Cities has sued the state on many bills. And there are over 400 cities in the state of California. And we get 400 cities together under one organization. It's a very powerful organization.
My name's Libby Henry, and I'm from Lafayette. I came over here because there isn't one in Lafayette. And I've been an activist, well, basically all my life, but since I retired in 2019. And I did a lot of my own research, and this housing crisis is a scam, a fraud on the people of California from top to bottom, starting with Newsom's housing goal based on a 2017 outdated, inaccurate population projection report from the Turner Center. And guess who funds the Turner Center? Number one funder, Mark Zuckerberg. Number one funder and founder of California YIMBY in 2015, Mark Zuckerberg. And the others have joined him. If any of you don't know, the housing goal for this state, based on the Turner Center's inaccurate projection for communities, there is more than enough housing for the people that live here. These laws have driven almost 1 million people out of this state because I know 31 people that have left the state in the last 5 years because the main reason, not affordability, it's because it's too crowded and they don't like what's going on. I know a whole bunch of people that were Democrats that are now independents because they don't like what the Democrats in the state of California are doing. But Newsom based his first thing that he declared in 2019 was 3.5 million because that's what the Turner Center said holds. There are 14.8 million housing units in the state right now. There are 13.1 million households to be housed, and that includes the homeless people. So he said 3.5. He only lowered it to 2.5 million when the Biden administration came out with their housing goal for the country in 2022. The Biden administration said 1.5 million. So I don't know about you. I only taught 5th grade math. But to me, that says that he has placed 1 million more housing units on the state of California than the entire rest of the country put together. We are 12% of the country. So our housing goal should be requisite to that, but it's definitely not. So you know what the head of HCD said? He said, I don't care, I'm not changing any city's numbers. And guess who? The head of HCD happens to also be on the board of that Turner Center.
That was all. HCD decided not to change anything. They're expecting 13.5 more million people to move to California by 2031, when the actual numbers by the State Department of Finance of California say that our population will remain almost flat up to 2060. So there's no logic to this at all. There's a lot of information on Susan's site, catalystca.org. There's a lot of information on my site. There are flyers here with QR codes and information of how to get to that. And this is just an outrageous, travesty. For this, I'm going to close out right after this. But 6-cycle RHNA, which is what we're dealing with now, was so horrible that cities appealed. And I've read many, many of those appeals. They were based on accurate information about changed circumstances, which is what the form required. Water, fire, flood, lack of buildable space for areas that have been built out for over 100 years. They were all denied. So that's the way we're being treated. 7-cycle RHNA, there is not even a process to put through an appeal. And with that, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. I'm going to hang out if you want to ask me anything, but I really, really appreciate everybody that came.